They sent Princess Lysara to marry the Monster King with no wedding jewels, no blessing, and no army escort, only a black carriage, a priest, and a coffin measured exactly to her height. The people of Ilarion lined the capital road as she passed. No one threw flowers, no one cried. They watched her the way people watch a candle being carried to its own grave. At the palace gate, her father stood beneath golden banners. King Odrin did not embrace her. Beside him, her younger sister Miraleth wore white silk and practiced a sad face. "You are saving the kingdom," her father said. Lysara looked at the coffin behind her carriage. "Then, why did you measure that before I left?" No one answered. Miraleth stepped forward and took Lysara's hand. "Please do not hate us," she whispered. "The enemy king demanded royal blood. Father had no choice." That was the first lie of the day. The second came from the priest, who offered her a silver cup. "A bridal blessing," he said. "Drink before you cross the northern border." The wine smelled like roses and iron poison. Lysara lifted the cup anyway. All her life they had called her cursed. The princess born beneath a black eclipse. The girl with a dark rose mark over her heart. The child whose mother died the same hour she first cried. For 20 years, her family kept her hidden in the West Tower. But when war reached the capital, they remembered she had royal blood, not enough to love, enough to spend. Lysara raised the cup to her lips, then poured it onto the road. The priest went pale. "If the blessing is holy," she said, "let the road be blessed." The carriage door closed, and Princess Lysara left her kingdom alive, which was not part of the plan. The journey north took 7 days. Green fields became dead grass. Dead grass became black pine forests. The forests became mountains sharp enough to cut the sky. On the 8th night, the carriage reached Morvain territory, the land of the Monster King. Every child in Ilarion knew the stories. King Cadron Morvan drank blood from silver cups. He wore dead princes' bones around his neck. He slept in a throne room lined with the skulls of his brides. Lysara expected screams beyond the border. Instead, she saw villages. Poor villages, frozen villages. Villages full of people carrying firewood through snow. Children watched her carriage pass, not with hatred, but with hunger. That unsettled her more than monsters would have. At midnight, Blackthorn Keep appeared on the mountain cliff. It was a fortress of dark stone, iron towers, and narrow windows glowing amber against the storm. The gates opened before the carriage stopped. Inside the courtyard stood King Cadron Morvain. He was tall, dressed in black armor, with a fur cloak over one shoulder and a sword at his side. A scar crossed his jaw. His hair was dark as wet ink. His eyes were not red like the stories claimed. They were grey. Cold, yes, but human. He looked at Lysara once, then at the coffin behind her carriage. "Your father sent a bride and a box," he said. Lysara stepped down. "The box is for after you murder me." Cedron looked at the priest. The priest began sweating. "Interesting," the king said. "I ordered neither." The courtyard went silent. Lysara's fingers tightened around her sleeve. "Then why am I here?" "Because your father wanted you gone," Sadran said, "and because he wanted me blamed for it." The priest turned and ran. He made it 3 steps before Sadran's guards seized him. Something burned beneath Lysara's skin. A line of fire opened across her chest. She gasped and pressed one hand over the rose mark hidden beneath her dress. Then the priest screamed. Black stems crawled up his neck, thin, thorned, twisting under his skin. A black rose bloomed from the corner of his mouth. Lysara stared. The curse had never done that before. Cadran drew his sword, but he did not point it at her. He pointed it at the priest. "By whom?" he asked. The priest sobbed blood and petals. "King Odran, Princess Miraleth, the royal council, all of them. The cup was poison. The princess was supposed to die before morning. Morvain was to be accused." The black rose fell from his mouth. Then the priest collapsed. Lysara could not breathe. Her father had not sold her to the Monster King. He had sent her as a corpse with a crown. Cadran looked at her carefully now. "So the stories are true." Lysara laughed once. It broke in her throat. "Which stories?" "That I am cursed, that I killed my mother, that any man who touches me dies." "No," Sadran said, "that Elarion's royal bloodline was built on stolen magic. And one day, the stolen thing would bloom again." For the first time, Lysara saw fear in the Monster King's face. Not fear of her, fear for her. That night, Cadran burned the coffin. Then he gave Lysara a chamber with a lock on the inside. That was the first kindness anyone had given her in years. The next morning, Lysara woke expecting chains. Instead, she found breakfast, a fire, and a black dress folded over a chair. A note lay on top. "Wear this if you wish. Burn it if you do not." She stared at those words for a long time. If you wish. At the palace of Elarion, no one had ever cared what she wished. At noon, Sadran summoned her to the war hall. Maps covered the table. Not maps of invasion, but maps of ruined villages, burned granaries, and border forts marked with black pins. "My people are starving," he said. "Your father broke the winter treaty and blocked grain shipments. Then he told your kingdom I was raiding the roads." Lysara studied the pins. Each one was a dead village. She remembered royal banquets filled with fruit in winter, golden plates, sweet wine, Miraleth laughing while musicians played. "How many died?" she asked. "Enough that I accepted a royal bride just to put your father's seal on a peace document. You wanted me as leverage." Yes, his honesty cut cleaner than politeness. "And now?" she asked. Cadran looked at the rose mark faintly visible near her collarbone. "Now I think your father sent me something more dangerous than leverage." Before Lysara could answer, the hall doors burst open. A guard dragged in a woman wearing Elarion servant colors. Lysara recognized her immediately. Nessa, her old maid, the only servant allowed to travel with her. Nessa fell to her knees. "My lady, forgive me." Lysara stepped toward her. Cadran caught her wrist. "Wait." Too late, Nessa pulled a silver needle from her sleeve and lunged. Cadran moved first. He caught Nessa's wrist and twisted until the needle fell. The tip smoked. Where it touched the floor. Poison again, Nessa sobbed. They took my brother. Princess Miraleth said they would hang him if I failed. The burning returned beneath Lysara's skin. This time it did not feel like pain. It felt like recognition. Black stems crawled up Nessa's arm. A rose bloomed beneath the skin of her palm. Lysara whispered, "Tell the truth." Nessa's eyes widened. "I was ordered to kill you after the wedding night," they said. "Your blood would awaken fully once you became Queen of Morvain. They said your death would curse this castle and everyone inside it." The room went cold. Sadran released Nessa and turned toward Lysara. "A bridal sacrifice," he said. Lysara felt the world tilt. She had not been sent to marry the Monster King. She had been sent to become a weapon against him. Her curse was not an accident. It was a blade her family had hidden in her body. That night, Lysara stood alone on the balcony outside her chamber. Snow drifted over Blackthorn Keep. Far below, weak village lights trembled in the valley. Sadran found her there. "You should sleep," he said. "I spent 20 years sleeping in a tower." He leaned beside the railing, but kept distance between them. She noticed that. "Are you afraid to touch me?" Yes, the answer should have offended her. "Because of the curse. Because everyone who has touched you has wanted to own you, use you, or kill you. I would rather not join the list by accident." Lysara looked at him. The Monster King, they called him. Yet he was the first man who treated her like a person sharp enough to cut him. "My father said you demanded royal blood. I demanded justice, and he sent me instead. He sent you because cowards always pay debts with someone else's body." Lysara closed her eyes. For years, she had dreamed of being rescued from the tower. Now she understood. No one was coming, because the tower had never been the prison. Her family was. 3 days later, the wedding began, not in a golden cathedral, but in Blackthorn's old war chapel, beneath banners torn from battles no one celebrated anymore. Sadran wore black. Lysara wore the dress he had given her. No veil. She wanted every ghost in Ilarion to see her face. The priest asked Cadron if he would take Princess Lysara Ilarion as wife and queen. Cadron did not answer quickly. He turned to her instead. "You do not have to do this," the chapel murmured. Lysara smiled faintly. "What a strange wedding vow." "I mean it." "I know. That was the dangerous part." For one moment she could walk away. Cadran had made sure of it. There were horses prepared, gold, a southern road, a chance to disappear under another name. But if she ran, her father would send another assassin, another lie, another war, and some other girl would one day be placed in a carriage with a coffin behind her. Lysara stepped forward. "I was born as a curse," she said, her voice carrying through the chapel. "Raised as a shame, sold as a peace offering, sent as a corpse." The black rose over her heart burned through the fabric of her dress. "But today, I choose what I become." The windows trembled, far away, across the border in Ilarion. Every mirror in the royal palace cracked. King Odran was sitting in council when the first black rose bloomed beneath his skin. Princess Miraleth screamed as thorns curled around her perfect white throat. Every minister who had signed Lysara's death order watched their names appear in blood across the palace floor back in Blackthorn Keep. Lysara placed her hand in Sadrin's. The curse surged between them. The chapel doors flew open. Black petals filled the air like a storm. Sadran's soldiers reached for their weapons. Kadran did not move. He looked at Lysara and held her hand tighter. The curse entered him. For one terrible second, Lysara saw his memories, not a monster, a boy king kneeling beside his dead mother, a young ruler burying children who had starved because Elarion broke its treaty, a man sharpening himself into something frightening because softness had never protected his people. Then the curse searched his heart for betrayal. It found none. The black petals stopped falling. One by one they turned red. The chapel fell silent. Lysara whispered, "You did not betray me." His voice was low. "Not yet." She almost laughed. That was the closest thing to romance either of them knew how to offer. The wedding ended with no kiss, only a vow. Not love, not obedience, war. And somewhere behind that vow, something fragile and frightening took root. Not trust yet, not love yet, but the first dangerous shape of both. For Lysara, that was already more than any palace had ever given her before now. By sunset, ravens arrived from Elarion. King Odran was alive, but marked. Princess Miraleth was alive, but unable to speak without coughing petals. The royal council had fallen into panic as black roses bloomed over every hidden treaty, every murder order, and every lie used to start the war. The truth had infected the palace, and truth, Lysara learned, was much harder to kill than people. That night, the people of Morvain gathered below the castle walls. They did not cheer. They watched. Lysara stepped onto the balcony beside Kadran. The valley was full of hungry faces, wounded soldiers, mothers holding children, and old men leaning on sticks. Her people now, maybe not by love, but by choice. Kadran offered her a crown of black iron. "You are Queen of Morvain now," he said. "But I will not place this on your head unless you ask for it." Lysara looked at the crown, then at the man beside her, then at the road leading south, toward the kingdom that had sold her. All her life people had feared the curse inside her. They were right too. But they had misunderstood one thing. The curse had never belonged to them. Lysara lifted the crown and placed it on her own head. Below the walls, the people of Morvain knelt. Kadran did not. He bowed. That mattered more. For the first time in her life, Lysara did not feel like a sacrifice. She felt like a warning across the southern border. The bells of Elarion rang all night, not for mourning, not for celebration, for fear. And deep beneath the old palace, in a sealed chamber Lysara had never seen, a stone coffin cracked open. Inside it lay the first queen of Elarion, dead for 300 years. Covered in black roses, her eyes opened and she smiled. "The bloom has chosen a bride," she whispered. Then every rose in the empire turned black.